I'm so privileged today that I actually get to talk to my mentor, meaning that I kind of went into this
Thank you.
conversation quite honestly, just venting, just
Yeah, go
telling you
for it.
exactly where I'm at right now. And the things that I've been battling. And I had these two conflicting thoughts where I'm like, okay, either it's the perfect episode, the perfect day to record an episode like this, just because I'm in the thick of the pain of the job hunt, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
experiencing that challenge where I'm struggling with which voice to listen to. And like I said to you before we started the record, I just feel like I'm listening to absolutely all of those voices that are telling me that I can't, I'm not good enough, I'm not who I say I am. I'm just putting up this front, trying to be something that I'm not. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's where I'm at right now. Um,
It's, let's just jive on that and see where it takes us.
yeah, do you mind?
Honestly, of course not.
Yeah.
So trying to be something that you're not. Let's unpack that for a moment because all of us think that we're someone,
Hmm.
and I think and I know that in the job market we take that someone and we mold the someone to fit into somebody else's puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Like all of these companies are little puzzles, and we form ourselves to so that they can fit, and then we try to convince other people and especially ourselves that we do fit in that puzzle.
Right.
And so on one hand, you don't necessarily want to fit yourself into somebody else's puzzle. You want to see that if the puzzle aligns with how you are already formed and how you are already yourself in your convictions.
Hmm.
Um, but on the other hand, um, the job market is so rough that so much people think that they need to do a lot of convincing, and we've all had all of this experience in our professional lives, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, or 21 years. We
Hmm.
have experience, and we see ourselves through that experience. So if Maggie, if you were an engineer for 10 years, but then you all of a sudden wanted to be a graphic artist,
Hmm.
you might really beat yourself up for months or years about the fact that you're not cut out for this, you don't have this experience, and those voices are like, get back in your lane, Maggie. You're an engineer. You need to just focus on that. And that's really hard for people. But through the work that you do with people, that self-realization work, people can quickly find that they can do just about anything
Hmm.
as long as they see it within themselves, and then they start becoming the person they're not. That's the full circle part here,
Yeah.
where you don't necessarily need to beat yourself up for trying to be someone you're not. You need to be that role. You need to be that person. You need to embody that role without judgment on yourself, and that's even hard for me.
Man, you hit the nail on the head on that one. It's it's definitely touching on some of the things that I'm definitely struggling with because one of the reasons, career-wise anyways, why I left the US and why I wanted to come home to Norway, which I actually spent hours writing a reflection episode about yesterday, which I'll record and launch at some point soon, had everything to do with the fact that I know that I can work so many hours. Like, I mean, in the job that I recently had, I was commuting for like 10 to 16 hours a week through time zones. And on top of that, I was expected to work between 40 to 45 hours per week. And as much as that brought so many results and all of it was great and fruitful in its own way, I wasn't passionate about the work that I was doing. But the 1, 2 hours that I spent coming home from my shift, actually recording my episode, actually creating this content, that's when I felt completely fulfilled. It didn't matter that I had spent so many hours during the day completely draining myself. Those hours at the end of the day that I spent working on my podcast, that's what made me feel as though I was fulfilled. And I know this because that is what I'm doing now with this podcast. That's what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about people knowing themselves better. I am passionate about us all understanding our strengths and weaknesses so we can use it as leverage. I understand like I understand the powerful tool that it is to really, really, truly know yourself and to dare to sit with all of the discomfort that is pain and grief and anything like that, which is why I share stories. I'm passionate about all of these stories that I share because I want people to feel somewhat relatable. I want them to recognize that they're not so alone in the world, that we've all been shameful about something, or we've done something we regret, or wandered down the path and we can't really understand how we even got there. It's when I tap into all of that, I feel like I matter and that what I'm doing is purposeful. But ever since I got home, I've had to make a living for myself. So of course I'm applying for jobs, and I'm in this job hunt now, which is why you're here to talk about the job hunt, of course. And but I find myself applying for jobs based on what experience I have and what I've accomplished in the past, which has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm passionate about. So
Yeah.
I'm like at a loss because it feels draining to be in the process because I can't even convince myself that I fit that puzzle. But at the same time, I mean, I need income, and this isn't an easy path to wander down when it comes to being profitable, at least at this early stage of my career as a podcaster. So to find that balance is probably somewhat what I'm struggling with, but also there are roles out there that are similar to what I'm doing now, where I can have this personal impact, such as HR roles and stuff like that. But I don't have that particular direct um, experience, so I'm not even getting interviews when I apply for those roles because my resume isn't a perfect match for that. You know what I mean?
Of course, I know what you mean. So are you a podcaster or are you a life coach who has a podcast?
I'm a life coach who has a podcast. Yeah. Because I created the podcast so that I could become credible to my clients. I created the podcast because I wanted to share the human experience because I recognize that it's at the human level you connect to people. And I don't want to be this psychologist therapist that is sharing nothing about their own overcoming of things. I want that personal relationship where you share your experiences and how you overcame them. Because we are all facing challenges in various ways and in all shapes and forms throughout our lives. And that's the impact that I care about having. And so then to be kind of what feels like on scratch, like back on scratch or at the beginning of something, although I'm in my home country, in my hometown, in the house that I grew up with, surrounded by my family, it's the safest place in the world. And somehow I feel so stagnant, but it's just a part of the process. It's a part of the process.
It is. And you said a lot of really good things there. I asked you if you were a life coach who has a podcast, and you agreed that that was your angle. And you also said that your podcast puts you out there and gives you credibility with your audience and with your future clients. Now, and you also mentioned that you love the human connection, and that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of what I teach in my one-to-one coaching
Hmm.
is that if you Maggie were to go out and apply for jobs blindly, maybe just based on your experience, maybe that's not blind, but that's through the lens of this is what I've always done. So mechanically, you just apply for those jobs, but it kind of feels a little soulless. You don't necessarily want the job, but you kind of need the job. That's the energy that you're using to apply for that job.
You're so
So
right.
it's likely not going to come your way. And if it does, it might be misaligned. And if it comes quickly and you're asked to make a decision, you might make a decision based on the bank account and not on alignment and your sole purpose, right?
Yeah.
So so I think that you are doing things exceptionally well. You are an accredited life coach. You are an effective and warm and caring life coach. Okay. And then you have this amazing podcast where people are starting to understand the value that you bring and how you help people know more about themselves through story.
Mm.
And and if you or anybody takes that same approach to managing themselves in the job market, they will succeed. And I don't mean like in the fast lane. I just mean like success to me in the job market is that you have aligned with an organization where you can help them and they can help you, and you move through together with respect.
Mhm.
And each of you gains something from the relationship.
Right.
Um, right? And yeah, I certainly think that you can very successfully navigate human resources jobs. And your challenge, just like everybody else's challenge, is when you're pivoting and saying, I have had all of this experience that is not HR, but I have a passion for it, and this is what I'm doing with my current business. And pivoting all of that and marketing yourself as the person who is the solution. And it's that can it's I won't want to say convincing, but it's marketing yourself appropriately so that you are seen for who you are. Because if you were honest with yourself, I think that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you say, I genuinely help people. I genuinely connect with people. Connecting with people, whether it's in my organization or outside of it with my friends group, is the essence of me. And I want to take that into the professional realm. But here's the thing, you already have. You already are a life coach and you already have a podcast. So you are doing this professionally.
I am.
Translating that into somebody else's business is the challenge then.
Yeah, that is the challenge. My gosh, you're a good career coach, Jim. And this is exactly why you're here and why we're having this conversation. I'm so grateful. I really am. You always say the right thing to me and you always get you remind me of who I am and you remind me of what I've done and you remind me of what I'm trying to accomplish in times when I struggle to see that. And that's what a good coach and mentor is. And I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let me give you a little bit more of a proper introduction to my listeners as we kind of just dove into my venting immediately. But you and I know each other because we worked together at my former company and immediately hit it off. And since then, even though we both left that company, have kept in contact and been supportive of each other's coaching businesses. And you have a company of your own, the Pathfinders Club. I want you to introduce that yourself, of course, which is helping people such as myself who are looking for a job and kind of needing the tools to utilize in the challenge that is the job hunt. Can you please introduce that and tell me the purpose of the Pathfinder Club?
Sure, sure. So thank you, Maggie. And you're doing amazing work here with your podcast. And you're teaching people how to discover themselves and discover the traumas and the stories that they've lived in their lives, and not to necessarily be wholly identified by them, but to move through them and learn from them so that they can lead a more fulfilling life, right? And you do that through story, and that's a lot of what the Pathfinders Club is. So let's unpack Pathfinders Club. So the Pathfinders Club, as a community, is future facing. My Pathfinder coaching is one-to-one and small group career coaching, where yes, I've helped dozens of individuals, even just in the last couple of years, move through that crippling cycle of doubt and confusion and let's just say complacency, right? The job market today in late 2025 is probably the worst I've ever seen it in my almost 22 years in the job space.
That is the most
And
validating thing I've heard.
it is severely broken. And what it's doing is it's the job market is synonymous with the toxic voices in your head. And if you listen to the market, you will think yourself to be worthless, unemployable, stuck, done, what cooked, whatever adjectives you want to whatever you use. But the key is to get centered, understand who you are, where your focus is, where you're going, and how to market yourself properly. So that's what we do in Pathfinders coaching.
Yeah. And I must say it's been incredibly helpful. I've been one of the lucky few who get to participate in your cohort and to use the every step that you have created to help someone such as myself navigate this process. Anything from building my actually first and foremost understanding who I am professionally, because one thing is kind of like what I talk about on my podcast is who I think I am, and but who I am professionally and how that's tied together. I have never had anyone trigger me in a way that that first step of the cohort did, because it made me think about myself and myself professionally in a different view. And I don't know how much detail you want to go into on all of the different aspects of the cohort, of course, but it's been so helpful in the sense that it's allowed me to understand who I am professionally from a different view and to build a brand based off of that. And it's helped me make my resume and my LinkedIn profile or any job hunting platform that one uses to their own preference, of course. It's helped me narrow it down so that I can be as specific as possible about what it is that I've done and what I have accomplished and what I am trying to accomplish. And which is
Thank
why
you.
I would recommend from the bottom of my heart to absolutely everyone who's struggling right now to participate in that cohort, just because of how impactful it's been. It's also been pretty daunting in some ways, because it also reminds me of kind of what you just said or tapped into it a little bit, just how much it requires of you to stand out today. I remember years ago when I was applying for jobs, you just had your what is it called? A cover letter and your resume, and that was pretty much it. But now there's just so much more built in around how to become visible, because there's so many voices and there's so much noise, and how to stand out of that today is harder than it's ever been. I think that's probably a part of what you're talking about too, as to why it's so hard. Um, but it's been Yeah, so the part that's been daunting is understanding just how much it requires of me to stand out in today's market, especially when, and I don't really know what it is. Like, what is that fatigue that one encounters when we are out here? Because I've already done so much, but why is it then so that the longer you are applying for jobs and the more rejection you get, and every email that's like, unfortunately, no, like all those emails, it's just building on this conviction that, like I said, introductory, I'm not who I say I am. I'm not who I think I am. And I might not be cut out for it. And yeah, it's it's overwhelming, and it's really challenging me on a level that I thought I had overcome in my coaching myself, you know what I mean? But I'm constantly reminded that building yourself up is a constant journey, and reframing that and communicating that to other people is also hard, because I have to constantly hold myself accountable to be who I say I am and to overcome everything that I've overcome before. And as much as I can put on a mindset telling myself, hey, I have all of this stack of undeniable proof that I have overcome hardship before, I will for sure do it again. And this is just one of those examples. And now I'm in the thick of it. Now I'm in the place where it hurts, and I have to sit in it and understand what it's doing to me and overcome it. What is your greatest advice to people who find themselves in this pit right now?
Thank you for the question prompt. But I want, before I answer that directly, I want to address something you said, um, all of what you just said. So you and I know each other, and we've worked in the professional environment together, and we have mutual respect with one another. Now, what if just imagine for a moment that we're having this conversation right now, and then you prompted me with a question, and then I signed off. I left this call, and I didn't say anything to you until sometime next week. Just think about me doing that and how that would make you feel, and tell me what that is. I just signed off right now, and I didn't say anything else, And then you couldn't reach me until sometime next week with no explanation.
I would make it about me. I mean, like for all I know, you got an emergency call and you literally had to go. But I would probably make it about how I said something wrong or that I I would probably how would I react to that? Yeah, I mean, I would feel rejected. I would feel rejected because
It'd feel pretty crappy, wouldn't it?
yeah, it would feel really shitty.
And
Yeah.
you would probably just be pacing around saying, "What happened? Why? Was it a technical issue?" So
Yeah.
within the first 30 minutes, you would probably be pinging me saying, "Hey Jim, I think we got disconnected. If there's a problem, just use this link. Let's get back on. We need to finish the podcast." And then after an hour and 15 minutes, you would think that something was really wrong. But by the end of today into tomorrow, you would start to think it was you.
Yeah.
That it's not that if Jim, had something going on, he would have told me because he's pretty communicative. And
Right.
Trend says that he would tell me, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I had to roll. Here's what's going on at home." Um, couple days in, maybe on the third day, you would think it's completely you, that I'm angry at you, that you did something wrong. And then a week in, you would start to become probably pretty resentful. And it would start to maybe stress our friendship a little bit that I just left the podcast and didn't say a word to you.
Yeah.
That is the way people feel in this job market.
Yes,
And
you're
they are
right.
not prepared for that. They are not prepared. They aren't. They will go through an interview like you and I are seeing each other through video, but this podcast is going to be an audio only experience. But people go through these video experiences with people they may have known in the past, but probably haven't. They have meaningful connections and conversations. There's an energy exchange there. uh, they likely feel really good about the exchange and they're given information about next steps, and then they may never ever hear from that person again, ever, despite all of the respectful reach backs and things like that. Now, um, ghosting is not something new, but it is something that when it happens to you under these really human circumstances, it feels really bad.
Yeah.
And most people are on the job market for a few different reasons. Maybe they are really unhappy in their last role, or they're currently sitting in a toxic environment and somebody coached them correctly to say, you need to get out of here. You need to do something for yourself. This is burying you. You're not yourself anymore. Go
Hmm.
get a different job. So they're already low. And then they enter this murky job environment where the rules, like human rules, don't apply.
Hmm.
And then they get beaten down further. And then now they're really in a bad spot. Now they don't want to work and they don't want to search for jobs because it sucks.
Yes, that's
Uh,
exactly how I feel.
and then it's like, well, what am I supposed to do now? And that is a very difficult thing. And honestly, becoming secure, your podcast is the framework to get on track, meaning getting on track with yourself and understanding that whatever happens in the job market, it's not you. You're not the problem. Once you understand that and embody that, you become unstoppable. You really do.
Yeah. Oh my
Because so
gosh.
many crazy things happen. Yeah, so thanks for kind of like going through that rather dramatic example, but I wanted you to feel for a minute what everybody feels.
That was such a good point too. And yeah, I think that really speaks to it because I mean, I'm even struggling to get the first round of interviews at this point, and it doesn't make any sense because my resume is so result driven. I mean, you made obviously your Pathfinders course has helped me create this masterpiece of a resume at this point, meaning that I have worded myself so well and result driven, and I have incredible results based on the job that I've done in the past. And yet I somehow can't even get to the first conversation. And yeah, it's so frustrating and it's so right what you're saying. It really starts to put a toll on who I then start to think that I am. And yeah, it makes me really resentful to the entire process. But at the same time, at the end of the day, I am the one responsible for making forward momentum. And also another thing that kind of dawned on me as I'm kind of in this process too is there was this moment where I kind of wanted to well, because I've told my parents too that hey, when I'm coming home now, like I want to do what I care about. I want to do what I'm passionate about. I'm too old to just be climbing the ladder in a company or in a role that I'm not actually thriving in. I want to do what I want to do at this point because that's where my gifts are great and that's where I create the most value. And I know that they're, of course, just coming from a place of wanting to help me and help me fast. And the conversations are very like, well, but maybe you should just like tap into this entry level role first and work your way up, kind of. And I
Ooh,
understand
yeah.
that saying that because they want me to yeah, kind of walk the walk, I suppose, and also to have at least a foot in the door, and I can see the value in that. But at the same time, it just rubs me the wrong way because then I'm like, hey, do you not believe that I will make it? Like, do you not believe that what I am telling you is true? Because that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. They may not believe, and not because they're unsupportive of you. You have very loving family, and I know that about you. Um, I think this happens to most people who take a non-traditional path and who
Hmm.
have more traditional family structure. Family structure meaning I don't mean the structure of the family. I mean the structure of the mind frame, the framework. For instance, I'm Generation X, and my baby boomer parents and in-laws commonly believe that working for one large organization for one's entire career is the play. It's the ultimate stability. It's the salary, it's the benefits, it's the 401k, and in long years past it was the pension, and this is what you do. You go to high school, you graduate, you go to college, you get a degree, you use that degree to get into one of these large corporations, and you just climb that ladder. You give yourself to the company, and then you are safe, you know? Uh,
Yep.
and the good thing is that generations now are moving far away from that, but we still have a lot of people in our lives who will look at the non-traditional path, the entrepreneurial path, and say, like, life coach, career coach, can that really be sustainable? Come on. Come on, just go get a full-time job instead. Or, while you play around. But neither of us are playing around here, right? We take our work very seriously, and it's fulfilling work.
Hmm.
Um, and this is just what people deal with over and over and over again. And honestly, it doesn't help, because if we're naysaying in our own head and we have the days where we're listening to our negativity and our negativity is reflected in the job market, remember that now we're really down, and we're looking for support and encouragement, not more judgment.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it is of course I want to be compassionate with the generation too, but I think I struggle to find the right words to say to kind of gain this um what is the right word to use here? Gain because it's not trust, maybe gain that trust that because they listen to my podcast, they think it's great. They say, don't ever quit this. It's impactful. You're doing the right thing. And they genuinely believe that it is a good product that I am creating. Yet there's this, yet there's this other side of the coin where is that stability part. And maybe there is a universe in which I can combine these or build on it in my next role. I think I just have yet to discover what that can look like. But already as we're having this conversation and with the knowledge that I've learned on the Pathfinders Club, I kind of have all of these downloads and triggers in my mind where I'm like, oh, maybe I can do that. Maybe I can do that. Maybe even just this conversation as a promotion video on LinkedIn is probably really productive. It's like I'm getting all of these thoughts and ideas onto how I can utilize this conversation for good, how I can utilize this fear and use it as fuel to contradict myself and contradict everyone else, and maybe just maybe the right person will hear everything we just said and understand that this person is the right one in our HR team or in our company for XYZ reason. And yeah, that triggers excitement in me and also kind of takes away a little bit of that worry that I had. So already I can feel better just by this conversation. Um, but yeah, so it is impactful just to talk about things out loud. And I do wonder, and it kind of is a little bit side note of like what I initially planned on talking about, but I do wonder, what is your thoughts on being yourself authentically, even professionally?
Well, okay, so what is authentic? Being yourself authentically. It really just means, hey, it's funny. I'm kind of defining this as I go. Being authentic means being true to yourself, and that can take so many different forms. But one of the basic forms that I think that it takes in the workplace is understanding boundaries, basic
Hmm.
boundaries, like workload, for instance. Understanding, and I'm just keeping it basic because this I think this applies to almost everyone.
Hmm.
Um, Being authentic means saying things like, you know, if I were to take on that particular project, that would push me over and not allow me to do my best work for you and for the
Hmm.
client. So I think that I will take it, but other things need to get adjusted. So let's talk about that, right? That could be being authentic.
Hmm.
Being inauthentic could be thinking that, feeling it, knowing it, but then saying yes anyway and just sacrificing yourself and your own well-being and possibly the business of the client just because you couldn't set some boundaries.
Hmm.
So I think that people can be their authentic selves and still be professional in the professional environment. Here's another example. Let's say you're in an environment where people are have a lot of high energy, and I'm going to use masculine, feminine, right?
Hmm.
As it relates to energy,
Yeah.
not as it relates to anything else. You're in a masculine energy environment where people are go, 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 work harder, go, go, go. I don't care. Just get it done. Let's go, let's go. And maybe your authentic self is the opposite, much more of a feminine energy. Let's understand the needs of the people. Let's let's align with what they need. Let's build a logical framework and let's take it one step at a time. Well, you might be perceived as being too slow in that high flow masculine environment. So you have a couple of choices to make if you're working with this team. You can be inauthentic and you can turn your feminine energy masculine and you can run as fast as everybody else, get exhausted, burn out, and then get resentful. Or you can put those boundaries up and say, okay, listen, I'm coming at this from a different angle, and I foresee some things happening here if we proceed in this direction. Let me just outline a few things and we can talk about how that will affect not just our team, but our client's team too,
Hmm.
right? And then now you've brought yourself and your framework and your mindset to the game, to the professional field, and whatever happens from there, you know that you represented yourself well. And that's what I see as people bringing their authentic selves to the professional workspace.
Hmm.
Lastly, on that is that the feedback loop that you get, whether that one time or it happens continuously, will let you know how aligned you are or aren't with that particular team. Because if you keep getting positive feedback and support and you're allowed to execute your way and it's effective and you keep getting that positive feedback loop, then you might say, well, great. I advocated for myself and my client and things are going well. I was enabled to do that. And I've made meaningful contributions and I've done it in a way that makes me feel good about what I'm doing and manages to my strengths. But if it's the opposite, then you know that you might need to go somewhere else to perform your work.
And I mean, all of what you just said, ironically, is exactly what happened to me, right? I mean, I was working for a company which had a very masculine energy in that sense, that it's very, very go, go, go. And I started noticing that there was a very huge gap between what we were preaching as a company and what we were practicing within our own team, especially coaching other businesses on how to utilize their human resources, like their employees, in the best way possible while remaining profitable as a company. And I believed in that mission so much, and I thought it was great what we were doing for the company until I realized that that's not at all what we were practicing. And I voiced that concern to the upper management, to the highest management, actually. I brought that information and I tried to the best of my ability to communicate that what we're experiencing as a team right now is not aligned with what we are teaching, what we're preaching. And it was never really addressed. It wasn't really talked about at all. I just remember one day my boss came up to me and was like, do you have anything more to say to me? And in my head, I was like, no, I mean, the ball is on your court now. And then we just never addressed it ever again. And that was kind of the beginning of the end on my end because that's when I realized that my boss was incapable of feedback. And that was unfortunate. I also recognized in that moment that whatever need I would address in the future would not be met. And I was completely burning myself out, and I am still burned out from that. I am still struggling to recover from the hustle and the grind that was working for that company and constantly being on the road and all of the bodily issues that came with it because your body will tell you when you are in the wrong space and in the wrong environment in various ways. To me, it looked like migraines every weekend, and that majorly impacted my sleep. It impacted my eating habits. It impacted not only that, I was traveling through time zones absolutely every week. So that too would have an impact on all of that. And not to mention the lack of joy I felt. And it was in that moment, I felt like, first of all, as much as I thought that the mission was great and that we were on the way to something really, really great, I recognized that, but the core of this company isn't actually representing what we're trying to accomplish. But I want to be the voice of reason between the employees and the management. And that is what I'm trying to accomplish now and why I want to be a part of HR because I want to be that voice that gets through to the manager. And I wasn't going to do that and accomplish that in this company. And I recognize that in retrospect, but I do still believe in my ability to create that environment, maybe more so in maybe a workspace like Norway, where we have different norms, different values. There's a complete different laws around labors than compared to the US. You know, like just one tiny example is the fact that in Norway, when you are resigning for a company, you have to let your employer know 3 months in advance so they can find you a replacement. And I brought that respect with me to my employer and got fired. So, so I was not at all met with the same energy as I one would hope. And therefore, I also kind of understood that there was this mismatch between how things work in America compared to Norway. And I kind of missed that stability and I missed that predictability and also the laws that actually protects the employees. And but I really understood at my core that I know that I'm a voice of reason. I know and I believe in my ability to communicate, but it is completely determined on how safe you feel to communicate in that space. If your voice is not heard or even valued, you're not going to bring value. And I wasn't bringing any value in that space. And therefore, I had to leave and I made that decision. And although it kind of was cut shorter than I anticipated, I still made a very, very important realization, and that is I really want to be that tie between employees and the employers because I believe in my ability to maintain peace, but also see what everyone needs and how to get there as a team.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there, Maggie. I don't know the job market or the employee employer rules or laws in Norway like you do. But there could be an opportunity for you to do some translating there, meaning maybe you're meant to help people who are coming into Norway working from the United States and don't know how to navigate Norway's job or employer landscape, right? Maybe you could do that as a contractor. Maybe you could find yourself a part of the process where people are job hunting in your country, from the US or from another country, where you can help them figure things out that way. Maybe it's a translation piece, or you know, in the United States, it seems like to me that human resources gets a little bit of a bad rap. It's the perception of human resources departments inside companies are the opposite of what HR wants them to be. It's almost like they're perceived as being anti-employee, pro-company.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to. I'm just letting you know what the perception is from some of the large companies I've worked for,
Mm-hmm.
is that no one can trust HR, if once HR is involved, you're done kind of thing.
Right.
So that stigma of HR in the United States exists. And I think that if you were to get a job in HR in the United States, you would be so much more pro-employee
Mm-hmm.
than most people really are.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Um,
Because I care about the people. I mean, of course, because here's the thing. I thoroughly believe that the company will be successful when people are happy. The greatest resource any company has is the human resource. It is the employees. Your company is non-existent without them. And I somehow that got lost along the way. I don't know when or why. But it seems to have yeah, it seems like we've completely walked away from that. And I mean, we can see consequences of that on companies all around where people then leave, right? They don't respect they don't respect their employer, they don't respect the company when they are not being respected, when they're not happy where they're at, they go elsewhere. And I want to be the voice that minimizes that. I want the turnover to be drastically reduced, and I want people to be happy, and therefore the companies be successful.
well, you may have seen how employees are viewed by certain companies, right?
Hmm.
You mentioned human resources. So humans are regarded as
Hmm.
resources to get jobs done. A particular set of tasks need to get done. And here, right, here are the tasks, and here's the time frame in which we have to do it. And then all of a sudden, people are being leveraged as tools rather than as humans who have needs and creative ideas, and who want to care about their work and who want to have a meaningful contribution to whatever the common goal is.
Hmm.
And I think that's what most large companies. I'm defining a large company as a public company that's greater than 3,000 people. I worked for a 90,000 employee publicly owned conglomerate for a decade,
Hmm.
and I absolutely was just a number. It didn't matter which. It really did not matter which position I held or which impact I thought I was making. I was just a number. And
Hmm.
of the decade, it probably took me the first 2 years to realize that, which was early on. And then there are whole big, self-deprecating reasons why I stayed for a decade. But we all make mistakes and learn from them. But I am happy that you were able to advocate for yourself and be your authentic self and
Hmm.
say, this is how I operate and this is how I can do my best work for you and the client. And I applaud you for getting into that conversation and putting yourself in that position, because I'm going to say that people don't normally do that. They will take the path of least resistance with their employer, and they will comply, and they will shrink themselves to fit, and then they're either in a physically unhealthy state, which very emotionally unhealthy state, and if they're in those states for an extended period of time, we're talking like years.
Hmm.
Once they are out of that environment, sometimes they can't bounce back without serious help. They become completely lost, or worse, they decide to jump straight back into another organization with the same deficiencies. because now from a trauma standpoint, they are attracted to that level of negativity now because it's what they know and they've learned how to survive it. Jobs are
Right.
not things that we should be surviving.
No, definitely not.
So how I'm gonna bounce this back to you for a minute.
Hmm.
How do you think people do you think that people would choose more of the same negativity if they didn't get on some sort of a course correction action?
I believe that we are a result of what we surround ourselves with. And I believe that I think that also, like when you're talking about this trauma part, we can survive and live in such a familiar hell that we fail to recognize an unfamiliar heaven because it requires us to take action, uncomfortable action. It requires us to step away from people we're used to, or a mindset or a frame of mind that we have constantly been telling ourselves. There's this narrative in our head that we've been living under, and the further away we get from the truth, the longer we kind of adapt to it because people are adaptable, meaning that in a situation like that, you do thrive in what's familiar, I think, but it can be destructive if you don't recognize the ripple effects of it. I recognized so early on, fortunately, that I started to the resentment, what you mentioned earlier, I started to build resentment and I could feel myself ruminating on conversations in my head and recognizing that I never really got that closure that I wanted. But I also recognized I wasn't going to get it there because it wasn't, like I said, a safe place to communicate. And I would be I would be completely at fault to myself if I had continued to walk down that path just because the money was good, like because I like getting the points, because it was fun to drive a rental car and stay at a hotel every week. All of those things were exciting, but all of my relationships around me were going to shambles. I mean, my friends started telling me that I was getting increasingly boring because I was just half asleep on the couch every weekend. My family was halfway across the world, and I wasn't able to really be there for them and with them as I wanted to. So in any relationship that I showed up in, I just became a bigger shadow of myself. And there's absolutely no job in the world that's worth that because relationships and connections are what we really, really thrive in. And that's become so abundantly clear because as even though I have no like money, foreseeable money coming into my bank account at this point in time, my relationships are better than ever. I'm finally surrounded by my family. I know who I am, and I respect the fact that I made that choice, even though it was hard. I took a risk, I completely disrupted absolutely every pillar of my life. I changed where I live, the country in which I lived in, the language in which I speak every day. And I was going to completely change my whole career. And I was also kind of going through, well, if you think about relationship pillars, I was also in kind of transitioning into a completely new space in the relationship realm as well. But all of those were risks that I took, but they all felt true to me. All of them felt true to me. And even though nothing is certain right now, I have never felt more at peace. So that peace, I'm so happy I traded all of that for peace.
And you had the self-awareness in the moment when you were in that trench. You were self-aware enough to get out of it.
Yeah.
And I just have to remind you that you were so strong to have that awareness at that particular moment to say, I need to speak up for myself, advocate for myself, and move through.
Yeah.
Um, to kind of punctuate that part, I tend to think that people who stay in those environments too long tend to become toxic leaders, tend to become these hardened doers who will expect that from other people in the future and then just perpetuate that cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's important, kind of piggybacking on that experience. A lot of people have that experience of working for toxic leaders or working in toxic environments. And look, toxic doesn't have to be capital T. It can just be lowercase t, which could mean just totally misaligned with
Yeah,
how you want to achieve your work.
yeah,
Really. It just could be that. It could be the salesperson who is really good at selling a particular thing, but maybe she's exceptional in front of a large group, but then the manager asks her to do 90% travel on the road, and she spends more time driving and talking on the phone than she does in front of a group, and she feels burned out and not effective. That could be just a simple example of misalignment, excuse me. Um, I want to talk about a little bit about the job market in the United States as it relates to people playing what I call the numbers game.
yeah.
Um, People, this is a real common misconception that people have when they enter the job market in the US. They might say, okay, I'm going to get my LinkedIn straight, I'm going to get my resume straight, and then I'm going to apply to at least 15 jobs a day every day for the next X days, um, with very little regard to using intention to apply for these jobs. What I'm seeing right now with my clients and in the job market is that before they use intention or a human approach, they're looking at about under a 5% response rate to playing the numbers game.
Hmm.
So that means you would have to apply to 100 jobs in order to even receive responses from five of them.
Right.
And we're talking under 5%. So it's more like 2%. So imagine the amount of time that it would take you, Maggie, or me, to fill out 100 job applications, especially those super annoying ones that ask for your resume, but then ask you to paste everything in from your resume,
Yes,
right?
that's the
It's like,
worst.
wait a minute here. Is this a personality test? You know, is this an
Are you just testing
so
my resiliency here, or are you just blatantly
yes, yes.
stupid?
Is
Can
it
you
okay
not
if I
read my
just put
resume?
NA? Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Oh my gosh, it's been grinding my gears.
Well, so here's what happens. Here's what happens. Here's what I'm seeing is that people start out that way and then they're like, this is entirely too slow. I spent my whole morning and I only applied to four jobs. And people, Maggie, and I'm not shaming anyone. I just want to make it super clear. I am not pointing fingers at anyone. I'm just simply saying what I see people doing and what I hear about people doing. Um, they spend half their day. They only get four or five applications because of the hurdles we just mentioned,
Mhm.
and they want to go faster. Okay, because they think that playing the numbers game, well, I got to get to 100 in order to even hear back from five. Okay,
Yeah.
so all of a sudden, they're like, I need to go faster. So how can I do this? Well, and then they find an AI tool that they can buy for $100 a month, that where they can upload all their information one time, create a full profile, and then that tool applies to jobs on their behalf, 15 to 20 of them a day. And people are like, "Oh, this is great. You mean I can just sit back and chill while this AI tool just applies to a plethora of jobs for me every day?" So you, if you compound that by hundreds of thousands or even millions of people in the US looking for jobs, what do you have? You have all of these applications getting AI created and thrown at these employers for these job openings. All of a sudden, an employer who might be less sophisticated, they're not the $30 billion company, they're the $20 million company with 285 employees. They open up their applications, and all of a sudden there are 3,200 people who applied for this job in 3 days. And this is a company who's used to processing like 15 people, not 3,200. So then they go to their managers and they're like, guys, we have 3,200 people who applied for this job. I don't even know how to start parsing this out. So, then they adopt an AI tool that filters the applications. Okay. So The job seekers are using AI to throw applications at employers, and employers are using AI to filter them out. So now they're in an arms race of volume. So
Mm.
everyone's playing the numbers game. And the result of that is that the person who's using automation, they get responses. It's greater than 5%, but it's automated rejections like crazy in their inbox.
Oh my
And we're
gosh.
talking about like, you could get 10 a day. Thank you for applying, but see ya. Thank you for applying, but see ya. And then that for the insecure person, the person who's not ready to handle that rejection, that starts to really hurt. Then they start calling their friends and they're like, I don't understand it. This tool that I bought for $100 is just getting me an inbox full of rejections. What's going on here? Then somebody says something smart and says, well, have you called any of those companies? Have you connected with anybody on LinkedIn? Have you asked for informational interviews and advocacy? So then the person does that with one or two, then they don't hear anything from that. Now they're
Mm.
really confused. They're like,
Yeah.
I spent $100. I put out 56 applications in 2 weeks or whatever it is. I got 20 rejections in my email, and then now I'm not getting any answers on LinkedIn. Meanwhile, the companies are all bolstering their AI filters to make darn sure that less than 1% of applications actually make it through the filter, and those are the people that get the callbacks.
Yeah.
So this is how messed up things are in the United States with today's 2025 job market. And one of the things that I teach and coach is that I don't believe you're going to get anywhere meaningful by playing any sort of numbers game. So don't open Indeed and then say, "Well, I applied for 210 jobs in the last 67 days." Well, that's good, but how many of those 210 companies did you follow on LinkedIn? Did you communicate with the hiring managers? Did you do connections on LinkedIn, warm calling? And how many 15-minute meetings have you set up with the people who are on the team that you want to join so that you can ask them what life is like on the team, what management styles there are, and ask for their advocacy into the workplace? If the answer is zero, then you shouldn't expect to get very far.
That is such a, I mean, it's so eye-opening. And what, as you were talking in my head, I was like, you know what I should do? I should print my resume, put it in an envelope, go to the companies that I'm interested in actually working for, ask to talk to some manager or like or HR person, introduce myself, give them my envelope, and tell them that I'm looking for a job. Here's my resume and here's my letter of recommendation. Here are my, well, I don't know if I would put in here, well, probably here are my references. Please let me know if anything opens up. I think just doing that alone would give me a massive advantage. And so that triggered one thought. It triggered a lot of thoughts, of course. And I do believe too that there are some elements of this in the Norwegian market as well, because I mean AI is everywhere at this point.
Sure.
And I've definitely had these thoughts these days where instead of, I even told you this, instead of using ChatGPT to perfect my cover letter, I'm gonna start writing these cover letters myself because somehow I believe that people can spot the perfect letters at this point, meaning that the one that is written, I was gonna say by hand, but you know what I mean, by own mind, is probably more likely to be spotted and also maybe stand out in the crowd at this point. But I think that what we're actually facing here is that people want to do things so simply, and that's kind of what we've been hearing for years. All of these companies are trying to make life easier for us. But the truth is you can't just skip over the processes of life. Life is just then life will find a different way to knock you down because if we're going to use other tools to simplify absolutely everything we're doing, we're completely losing agency. We're giving up our power completely, and we're saying that this machine is better than I am to do what I am perfectly capable of doing. So we're just dumbing ourselves. So
Yes, yes. And look, ChatGPT is one of my favorite things of all time. and she helps me every
Same.
day.
I love how you
But
say
here's
she.
yeah, yeah, and here's the thing though. Well, because my ChatGPT voice is a female.
That's
Um,
funny.
yeah, so she does help me every day. And so I'm a proponent of AI tools to help us.
Yes.
But I am not a supporter of AI automation in the application process.
Yeah.
I think I know that my clients win in the job market, and winning means winning to them, to me, means getting the interview and representing yourself the best way you can. That
Hmm.
is winning.
Yeah.
That it's we're not outcome focused here. Of course, we're also not process focused. We are focused on the alignment work. So getting in the door and representing yourself well is a win. And then understanding the company, the culture, how you can, I almost said fit, but that's not it. It's how you align and where you can provide the value.
Hmm.
And if those things align and you move forward to an offer, that's great. If you don't, you take all of that with you to the next one.
Hmm.
And the more human we can make it, the better off everyone's going to be. And your idea to actually just walk straight into a building and talk directly to the people is phenomenal. And so many people don't do that. So many people want to just stay in front of their computers. So many people want to play that numbers game, Maggie, and it's just not effective. It truly is not. It's honestly like watching videos about working out and deciding not to work out. It really is. I mean, it's like I watched the video, I know what to do. Okay, great.
Yes. It's like I know exactly what to do. Thank you for giving me all this information I'm not going to utilize.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I mean, I must say, just this conversation alone has triggered so many ideas in my head. And sometimes just talking it, I mean, why am I surprised that talking it out helps? It's literally what I preach. Talk it out, get it out of your chest, walk through the motions because once we release it from okay, once here's what I believe. Once I've released this from my body and I talk to someone who knows what this feels like, someone who has hands-on experience, but also professional background to not help me navigate this, it is so powerful because now I have more space to focus on what I'm actually trying to accomplish. I relieved space now, and I can look at this whole situation from a different point of view, and this is why talking about what we're struggling with is helpful, and having people in our corner who knows who we are and knows what we're trying to accomplish, which is why I appreciate you so much for not only taking the time to do this, but also helping me navigate the ups and the downs of just life. I'm so grateful, but I do feel like this whole conversation proved some really important um, points that I'm trying to prove in my podcast in just an hour, and that's phenomenal.
Well, I'm very grateful for you and
Thank
this
you.
opportunity here to get on to my first ever podcast, being a first podcast guest
I
and
love
getting to
it.
talk to you about trauma and about the darkness of the job market as it relates to you and me and everybody else who's in it.
Right. But also something that I was struggling with earlier, that I was thinking to talk to you about was that I am scared of posting things on LinkedIn related to my podcast because somehow I think it's two different universes. I think that my podcast and who I am here and my life coaching business is something completely different than what I'm trying to accomplish within a company. And I've been worried that, hey, if I merge these worlds, I will become somewhat less reliable as an HR, or that I'm kind of merging two universes that doesn't really coexist. But as we're having this
Yeah.
conversation, I realize that's complete bullshit. And that's just the devil on my shoulders giving me the convictions of my fears.
Yeah, it is a fearful thing because you're focused too much on the what ifs. What if people see it this way? What if people see it that way?
Exactly.
Instead of just doing it and letting it become what it's meant to become.
I must say, I'm really, really grateful that you've been here today. I mean, you've already helped me so much in this conversation, and
Really?
I truly, yes, you have. You really have. It's sometimes it's just getting
That's
things in
great.
perspective. You say stuff that triggers my mind, and I get an idea. And once I have an idea, I can get the ball rolling. Sometimes it's just getting the right kind of trigger because like I said introductory, I've just been believing all of those voices in my head that are negative and all those convictions of like me not being who I say I am. But you have reminded me time and time again in this conversation that not only am I, but also, hey, what you're in right now is only symptoms of your situation, not who you are. And that is so important. So I do believe that if I could be helped in this situation, I am positive that other people can be helped in this situation. And I will use my platform to uplift others. And I believe that that's what we're going to do with this episode. So thank you so
So
much for
you,
being here.
so you, that's not future phasing, that you're doing that already. My platform uplifts others. My
Yes.
platform uplifts others. It's because you're already doing it.
Yes. Do you want to hear this little prayer that I wrote down? I'm going to just go grab it. Two
Yeah,
seconds.
definitely. Definitely.
Here it is. To be fair, all over this room, I have notes like this that are just me saying stuff to God in conviction. But I'm trying to pray in like a future facing, like you just said. So I wrote, Dear God, I am grateful people are listening to all my podcast episodes all over the world. I love that my listeners love the episodes and find them helpful and life-changing. Lord, thank you for my voice and wisdom. I am thrilled that I am changing people's lives everywhere my voice and wisdom reach. I receive love and wealth, and I am sharing my love and wealth with people. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for reading that to me. And your listeners have to know too that if you feel stuck in your environment at work, whether it's burning you out or it's toxic or it's just straight up boring because you've been doing it for a decade, there
Hmm.
is life. There is life outside of your current situation.
Yeah.
You don't you can take that leap even if the job market's murky, you can take the leap and
Yeah.
you can ask for help and you can really thrive in a new environment.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a reason why a lot of people who had these crazy stories and journeys of how they overcome. They very often say they started from the bottom and now they're here, right? And that I guess that's a cliche. And I think it's very often when we hit rock bottom, when we got nothing left to lose anyways, that we actually start to make the real changes, the real impact, because we're all holding on to possessions we think derives value when it's actually just depleting us from value or from purpose, maybe a better word. To wrap this up, is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you want to share with my listeners?
Yeah, just reiterating that you can find life outside of your current situation and that don't be afraid to ask for help, like we talked about before.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking of a sound bite. So I did kind of weave that in, Maggie, in our earlier, like 2 minutes ago. But do you often ask your listeners, excuse me, your guests where they can be found online?
Well, I do, but I tend to add that information on the description below the episodes as well. But of course, you're so welcome to share where my listeners can find you, and I will make sure to include all of that information in the description below the episode.
Okay. Thank you. So listeners can find me at thepathfinders.club online. That's thepathfinders.club. That's a landing page where I have my coaching information and a little bit about me and things like that. So I am very, very grateful to you, Maggie, for having me today. It was a pleasure getting to talk to you. And as always.
Thank you so much, Jim. Likewise, of course.